Welcome back, everyone, to more Draft League content. After about 4 months of hiatus from Draft League, we're back! And we're not just back, we're back and rebranded in a new league. That's right, the Fullarbor Flygons are out, and the South Province Smolivs are in. You know what this means. It's a new year, and a new generation of Pokemon has come out, which means a whole new batch of Mons to play with. Sounds pretty fun. So, let's go over something, shall we? The season we're playing in today is not from a league we've ever been in before. Well, I have been in this league before, but I haven't made a video about it, so this is LPL. It's the Premier League, yes. And we're in the Koraidon division for the Winter Showdown, the first draft league of this new format of, well, Gen 9. Particularly post-home, so we get the legendaries that come back from home, some of the starters, and some other desperate mons thrown about. I've looked through some of the mons, and I gotta say, this seems like a good season. It seems pretty fun. So, without further ado, let's look over at the mons we drafted, and as we go, I'll say the rules. I'll go over the rules as we go on. First off, we have a round 1 pick. We have Chi Yu. Our first, right off the bat, we got a Gen 9 Mon. And what a banger. We got one of the strongest Mons with pound for pound power. With 135 special attack, a fire and dark typing, an amazing offensive type, and the absolutely ruinous ability Beads of Ruin, Chi Yu is not something to take lightly, to say the least. Especially when it's matched with Terra types. That's right, we're using the new mechanic, terrestrialization. Yes, terrestrialization. The funny hats that sparkle, and they change your type. Obviously this could be a bit busted if it was on every single mon, and you could do it at any time. Draft would just implode, so we can't have that, but it's also a pretty fun mechanic, so no one just wanted to get rid of it. So here's how it worked. You had to name 2 Terracats. And the Terracatons you chose, their point value would be multiplied by 1.15. For example, Chi Yu was originally 18 points. Multiply that by 1.15, round it up. That's 21 points for Chi Yu, which is able to terrestrialize. Now, not every mon was allowed to terrestrialize, sadly. Stuff like Spectrier wasn't allowed to terrestrialize. Stuff like Valiant and Roaring Moon wasn't allowed to terrestrialize. But other than that, most mons were fair game. Speaking of Roaring Moon, that was our next pick. Don't ask me how I managed to get both Roaring Moon and Chi Yu in one draft, but I did, so it's pretty cool. Roaring Moon is an absolute monster with an attack set of 139 and an insane amount of sets. You got DD Booster Energy with Acrobatics. You got Choice Band, Choice Scarf. Probably got more that I'm not thinking of right now. It's got pretty good coverage, and again, this is not a mon you want to take lightly. Furthermore, this is our second dark type, so you might be wondering that might not have been a smart choice, but there is a certain synergy here that will be revealed when we get to our round 3 pick, which is Torkoal. That's right, we're bringing back our beloved, our classic Sunshine the Torkoal. We're bringing Sun, as most of you I assume know. I am an avid lover of Sun Trick Room, and Sun has never been stronger, I'll tell you that. And I could not be happier. So, right off the bat, we got Torkoal. It got rocks. It has rapid spin, body press. It's the same as it was last time. You could run boots, or now with photosynthesis and Chi-Yu absolutely nuclear attack stat and fire stab, especially when backed by terrestrialization into a fire type. This means it basically becomes a delete button on anything that isn't immune to fire. If we run choice specs in the sun overheat, terrestrialize into fire, nothing switches in, which is quite scary. So yeah, this is just the same Torkoal you all know and love, but with more friends that it can abuse Sun with. Not just Venusaur. Now, it's got a couple other of fun pals, including our round 4 pick, Hisuian Lilligant. The old Lilligant was always a bit of a disappointment, I'm sorry to say, because I know a few people that adore Lilligant. Thinking about you, Jacob. But Hisuian Lilligant is a whole other story. Not only does it have additional stab in close combat, or axe kick if we're feeling insane, but probably not. It also has a physical version of Quiver Dance, which, in conjunction with terrestrializing, this is our second Terra Captain, can make it really hard to remove and an insane threat to the opposing team that can sweep on a dime. With 105 speed and 105 attack, it's hard to stop after it gets a boost up, especially since it doesn't even need that speed most of the time because of chlorophyll, which makes it absurdly fast, unmatchably fast most of the time. Most swift swimmers won't be able to outspeed it even in rain, or well, that doesn't matter, but I think it is the fastest chlorophyll user by far, and one of the strongest. I assume most matches we won't even need to run speed investment, not only because of chlorophyll, but also because of the boost to speed victory gains it gives us, so we can invest in bulk to allow us to set up more easily. Which is even easier if we give Lilligant a defensive Terra type, like Steel, Rock, Flying, what else? Fire, Water. All these Terra types can make it so much easier to set up and harder to revenge kill, because it can just switch types into a type that resists what you're using against it, so it becomes insanely hard to stop once it gets going. This isn't even to mention its alternative ability, Hustle, which makes an already insanely powerful Pokemon even more powerful. Now its close combats are getting a free choice band boost. So you just run something like, Wide Lens, and you set up a Victory Lens, and pretty much nothing can switch in, especially with Terra types. And this mon actually gets really insane coverage for some reason. Ice Spinner, Acrobatics, Poison Jab, what else? I mean, I think those are the main things, but with Terra Blast, it can use its Terra type to really fill out the coverage it needs, so really strong pick on this team. Not only can it abuse Sun, but it can abuse the fast-paced offensive style of team we got going on. And the Sun, With Chlorophyll, it's able to threaten Mons that it couldn't threaten otherwise because of them speeding it regularly or are not having to invest into speed. Moving on! Round 5, we got another Mon that abuses Sun. Our entire team is filled with Sun abusers by now. We got Cresselia, and if you don't know why it abuses Sun, well, you haven't played Gen 5 OU back when it was a current gen. I didn't either, but back when Sun was an actual viable playstyle in that tier, Cresselia was a staple, because Moonlight, instead of healing the usual 50%, it healed 75% of Cresselia's HP, and it still does that, and now that recovery moves are nerfed with 8 PP across the board, this benefits Cresselia a lot, since it doesn't have to outlast as many things as it used to, and it isn't nerfed at all, since Moonlight was always 8 PP. So this is our main, bulky Mon. Bulky support. It gets Thunder Wave, it gets Trick Room, it gets Screens. It can do a lot of stuff. It can even bring a Team Babe, like a semi-revival blessing, and use Healing Wish to heal back another Mon. Originally, I had this as my Terra Captain, because with Terra Electric, it loses all weaknesses, thanks to Levitate. Which, once again, I didn't mention this, but Levitate means we have a ground immunity, which was a bit of a problem before this, because our team had 2 fire types, and our only resistance was Lilligant, so having a sturdier ground resist is very helpful, especially since, thanks to the removal of transfer moves, a lot of Mons lost knockoff, so Cresselia doesn't have to fear knockoff as much, so it's a lot sturdier and a lot more viable, I think. Moving on, we have our fairy type, so we got our dragon and our fairy, so that's our FDS score, 2/3 of the way done. And also we got 2 fire types and a grass type, so that's our fire, water, grass score almost done too. Sylveon is, you know what it does. It's our cleric, it's got Wish, Heal Bell, it's got Mystical Fire, Draining Kiss, Calm Mind. It can do a lot of stuff, and it actually benefits from Sun because of Mystical Fire, so it actually gets to put the hurt on a lot of steel types, even especially those I couldn't really hurt before, because they were too bulky. But with the Sun boost, even without investment, it can start doing a lot of damage. But mostly this is just going to be using Wish, baton passing the Wish onto another teammate to get it in safely, something like Chi-Yu, after taking some Rocks chip with a spec set, gets wished back to full health and baton passed into, and is able to wreak havoc again. So Sylveon, just a generally good Mon, it never really changes what it does, but it's always consistent at least. Moving on, round 7, we got Rotom, our electric type. Originally I wanted something else, another electric type. I was originally going for Sandy Shocks, but that got sniped. Wait a minute, I'm stupid, I forgot one of the Mons here. Rotom isn't our next pick. We actually got a different Mon before this, and forgive the cut, but I'm going to change this up because I forgot. Alright, we should be back now. I'm sorry, Rotom, you're not actually our round 7 pick. That would be Donphan. Donphan is a ground type, which is good because it docks Volt Switch, and I'd say ground types are practically required on every draft. Not only is the offensive type just really good, the immunity to electric is crucial, and generally ground types tend to have
good utility moves like Stealth Rock, Spikes. Well, a lot more mons got Spikes this gen, but unfortunately Donphan was not one of them. But it does still have Earthquake, it does still have Edgequake coverage, it's got Ice Shard for priority, it even got Ice Spinner this gen, that's pretty big. It helps it check dragons more easily and flying types. And additionally, it's one of the few mons that kept knockoff in the transition to Gen 9. So that's pretty neat. Its physical bulk is really good. It helps alleviate the pressure on Torkoal to be a physically defensive mon. And generally, yeah, it's just nice. Also, making Torkoal not have to be our only spinner, set to tweak to rocks. This way we don't have to run heavy duty boots every week, we can run Pete Rock when we need it. And Donphan could just be around to get rid of the hazards. Not to mention how, with the rapid spin buff, you can actually maybe even become somewhat of an offensive threat if left unchecked. Moving on, we got Rotom, as I said. Just a generally good Pokemon. It's an electric type, so it can spam Volt Switch around, and unlike most electric types, well, most is a strong word, like some of the worst electric types, it's got a secondary type, which means it gets more stab options. It also has some good supporting moves. It can Thunder Wave, it can Will-O-Wisp, it can do a pretty good sub-hex set. It's got Nasty Plot for setup. Just generally good options for Rotom. It's another ground immunity to help our fire types flourish. It's a good pivot to keep offense going. And it's our first mon that can beat flying types. Because up until now, the flying types would kind of really hurt our team, especially with Sui and Lilligant on our team. So yeah, that's pretty good for us. Moving on, we have Revavroom, another Gen 9 mon. Third and final one, I think. It's a Poison Steel type. And at first, while that may seem like a pretty bad type because of 4 times weakness to ground, its ability Filter, and it's generally good stats like 80, 90, bulk's pretty good, it's got really good attack and speed, and it's got Shift Gear to be able to set up and do some damage on unprepared teams. Now, its moveset isn't the best. It doesn't have Earthquake, for example, but it has Bulldoze, but not Earthquake for some reason. But regardless, it can still put the hurt on a lot of unprepared teams. And it even has some great supporting moves. It's got Toxic Spikes. It's got Toxic, which is actually rare this gen. It's got Parting Shot. It's got, as I said, Shift Gear for setup. It's got a signature move, Spin Out, which is pretty strong, but not that good. It's a Steel type Earthquake that lowers your speed by 2, which is, well, it could be better. Especially considering all the broken signature moves that popped up this gen. But all in all, for our one and only Steel type, for being such a budget Steel type, I'd say it's pretty good. It really fits the team, I'd say. Especially considering we've got 2 ground immunities and a ground resist that really loves taking advantage of free switch-in opportunities to set up. Especially since this mon, imagine a Steel type comes in to threaten your Revavroom, and we get a Parting Shot into Lilligant. It allows us to have an easy way to set up, so that's pretty good. Originally I wanted Kaparaja to be our Steel type, but unfortunately it got sniped, so, you know, c'est la vie, you can always get what you want. Moving on, our round 10 pick is our Water type, and our second Poison type in a row. It's Quillfish. Once again, not the first choice. Originally I was hoping for Craigsire, or even Gastrodon, but both of those got sniped, unfortunately. Since both of those also got spikes this turn, but we're going with a classic, I suppose. Not only does it give us a second mon to be able to deal with Fairy, which is pretty important considering Roaring Moon is really weak to Fairy, and getting 2 poison types, one of which is a Seal type, to beat out those Fairies is pretty important. But Spice stacking with Spikes and rocks from either Donphan or Torkoal can be really good strategy. Not to mention how with Intimidate, this mon can be pretty physically bulky. It also gets Toxic. Again, we got another rare mon that gets Toxic this gen. But really, this is just our requisite water type to finish up our cores. It's a pretty good lead. It's not as good of a Spikes lead as, say, Frostlass, but it still does get Taunt, it still does get Spikes, it still does get Destiny Bond. So all in all, it's pretty good. And moving on to our final pick, our budgeted pick, it was only 2 points. We got Masquerain. Masquerain is here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to set up sticky webs. If it does anything else during the season, like maybe KO a single mon with a Quiver Dance set, that's a bonus. Because really all it's here to do is maybe get brought once and set up sticky webs for Specs, Chi-Yu, or Banded, Roaring Moon, or Life of Roaring Moon. Because sticky webs with those powerful attackers that sometimes need a little extra boost in their speed, or in this case a drop in the speed of their opponents, is really scary, even with the omnipresence of boots. But other than that, it gives us another ground resist, or immunity in this case. It's not that big of a deal, but it exists. Once again, this wasn't the mon I originally wanted. I originally was gunning for Spidops, but alas, it got sniped. So we don't get to have another Gen 9 mon. We get a boring old Masquerain, but it does what Masquerain does best. Set up sticky webs and then die. And that's all. That's our draft going into this season. I'm really excited to see how this season will go with the new gen and the changes to the format. And this wonderful draft that I'm quite excited to show off. I'll see you in the week 1 game, which should be uploaded eventually. So I hope you all have a nice day. And yeah, I hope you all have a nice day. That's really all I can say.